Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and check it out. Recently, I went out to Seattle. I went there, of course, I got to see things like the Space Needle there, and of course the first Starbucks, because, you got to do that. That's only the fourth time I've been to the first Starbucks. No, that's not really why we were there, but although Starbucks, you can't avoid Starbucks there. It's absolutely insane. As that sign would indicate, I was there for Pax West. And you always know you're near a nerd convention because you'll see things like Monster Energy trucks just show up everywhere. But yeah, PAX West, of course, is a big convention, that video game convention that happens out on the West Coast. It's kind of like E3, but a tad more publicly accessible with updated demos. You can see my badge right there. I was media, or technically a content creator, but that allowed me access into the convention center. I could get in the day before, although I was very limited in what I could see. And then the first day of the convention, I could actually go in about an hour early. Which was nice. So here, this is me getting in an hour early before the convention opens. Right here, Behemoth Games basically was cool enough to have like a free breakfast for media, so lots of free coffee and all things like donuts and stuff over there, so that was nice of them to do. And of course I got to check out the Sega booth there, which you saw for a second, which you'll see a little bit more of here. But I thought this was cool. This just caught my eye. They had Xbox XDKs. I'd never actually just seen one, just straight up like that. But yeah, Sega had a nice little booth, which was strange that Sega actually had a booth, because some companies were oddly missing. Like EA was not there and 2K was not there. But to see Sega there was odd. And then they had this stuff on display for Sonic Mania, which was just cool as shit. You'll get more information about that little manual there in a bit. That I picked one of those up. Spoilers, you'll see it at the end. But yeah, so now I'm just going to take you on a quick little tour of the convention floor. Again, it might look pretty vacant, but this is before the public was allowed in. So I figured this is the absolute best time to get some footage, because you'll be able to see a lot of things relatively unobstructed, and I'd actually be able to get through it quickly. So just a nice quick glance of the place in case you wanted to see what it was like. So you saw a little bit of the Twitch area there, and there was some other like PC gaming rig stuff over there. I don't pay much attention to those. But there are WB Games on the right there with their Lego Marvel stuff, and then Dragon Age stuff, or is Dragon Age? No, it's Shadow of Mordor sequel. Sorry, yeah, Shadow of War. There you go. And the Super Mario Odyssey, like Nintendo area there to the right. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Look at that. Nice. You'll see more of it. H1Z1, I was surprised to see they had a big thing. And there was a lot of dragons, like Monster Hunter there. There were two dragon setups across the street from across the street. I mean, not literal street, but across the way. Because you had one set up by WB Games, and you had one set up by Monster Hunter, which was weird. Intel had this thing, nice little setup there. Over there, more PC gaming stuff. To the right, you've got Square Enix right there. Yeah, Square Enix had a nice little setup for all their Final Fantasy stuff, and then some Life is Strange and other things like that. Then just kind of taking a quick tour down here. You got a little thing set up for Project Cars 2. More H1Z1. I was surprised to see so much space dedicated to one game. That was cool. The DirecTV. Actually, I don't even remember looking at this, to be honest with you, originally. The DirecTV thing. Obviously, they're pushing more streaming services and stuff like that. Because it's not just video games. It's kind of, it's something they think gamers in general would be interested in. And obviously, they assume gamers are going to be interested in the concept of streaming and digital media and stuff. So there's a lot of push for that. Over there, I didn't even really pay attention to that area. That area was like t-shirt sales and stuff. Capcom's little area kind of showing off Resident Evil Revelations being ported to Xbox One and PS4, as well as some DLC for Dead Rising 4. Bandai Namco had Project Cars 2 and that Dragon Ball Z fighting game. Capcom, of course, also had more Street Fighter 5 playable, like with more content. I remember it... No, that was E3, I was going to say. I remember it being playable... Actually, maybe... God, if memory serves, I think I actually remember at PAX 2015 Street Fighter V being there. So it's kind of weird they brought that game that many years in a row. Devolver there had a nice setup. You guys, I don't think she was in the shot there, but Kinsey, who's you guys would know from Metal Jesus Rocks, she was actually one of the people running that booth. So it was kind of a random coincidence. I ran into her later over there. I had only been introduced to her like the day before. She's friends with some people that I'm friends with, so that was cool. But yeah, Twitch had their own little like VIP area there. I'm not a Twitch personality, so I have no pull over there at all. Nevertheless, I thought I'd give you guys a quick look at it. And yeah, there's more. A lot of places have like the free breakfast in the morning for their staff, and of course just random PR people that get invited. Behemoth is the ones that invited me, so I enjoyed their free breakfast. Then there's this little pavilion type of area that has like a lot of stuff that's for sale. This is usually the way this is. This is my third time going to a PAX West, and it's usually basically the same setup. And over here, a lot of places are in the same spot, like Dark Horse Comics is always in that same spot. Yeah, that's a nice area because it's more open and it's more air conditioned. It's when you get into these bigger areas where you just kind of go, because that's when it can start to stink and be hot and all that kind of stuff. Ubisoft had this really nice setup for Far Cry 5, which I've now beaten the Far Cry 5 demo, the same demo, 7 times. I love it. That game is awesome. I can't wait to be able to play more content in it. The Xbox setup over there is nice. But yeah, Ubisoft kind of went all out with like the water tower and everything, which will make more sense once you've played it. But yeah, so that's cool. Xbox section over there. Some surprises over there that I'll show you later, but this is another, I'm sorry about the camera work. I'm just kind of, shooting and going here, because a lot of people don't really want to be on camera. Mixer had a thing there. More of the indie booth section. To be honest, I don't really pay much attention to the indie section. That can be a good place to kind of get away from time to time. Like if you want to do that and just go play something real quick, that's kind of a good opportunity to do it. But as media, I don't really, the thing is, I don't really get a chance to like sit down and play much of anything, despite what you might think. I mostly have to like go to meetings, and I'm lucky if I get to play like a couple of things. Like most of my time, I was either in like the Ubisoft lounge, or I was off at meetings with Square Enix and a couple other companies. Like that's mostly what I was doing. And the only times I ever really got to play anything like recreationally was either when I had a friend hooking me up with something, or if I waited for Mario briefly, and I waited for Sonic Forces briefly, but I'll talk more about that later. This is Pink Gorilla, my buddy Kelsey. She runs this booth. You'll see more footage of this in an upcoming video specifically about Pink Gorilla, but that's a cool game store. They're the only game store allowed in there, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, all sorts of, more stuff over here, more indies, more just games, obviously, the different types of games. And it's cool, it's interesting now that I think about it. Pink Gorilla has always kind of been in that spot, and I've been to PAX West, or what formerly was known as PAX Prime, 3 times. This was my 3rd time. I went in 2014, 2015, and now 2017. I wasn't there last year, 2016. PlayStation had a big section over there, which was cool, as you can see in there. Very, very neat. They had a lot of cool stuff in there, actually. A lot of cool VR games, and then a lot of their big E3 stuff was totally playable there. Things like Detroit and, the other ones that are spacing out right now, but I'm sure you'll notice some of the footage. I'm sure you know a lot of those games already. But I always, it's cool to see. It's cool to see. They had a very nice setup. Both them and Xbox both had very nice setups. Nintendo's was actually like the least interesting of the 3 main ones, because they basically just had a tiny little area, which you saw before, and the big push for it was basically just Mario Odyssey. There wasn't really much else to it. They had little sections for some of their 3DS stuff, but that was kind of it. But yeah, now just another swing look around here over at the Ubisoft booth before I believe I went right after this. Rooster Teeth had a setup back there, which I was a little surprised to see, but that was cool. Up ahead, Bethesda is off in the distance there. Logitech had a thing. And that big dinosaur there for Ark, that was cool. A lot of cool big physical dinosaurs and dragons and lizards and all sorts of shit that people were just setting up. That was kind of a weird coincidence that so many different groups actually did that. Then Bethesda over here had a pretty neat booth. They were pushing a lot of their VR stuff, like Fallout VR, Skyrim VR, all this other shit. And then back there, where it says Diner, is where they had some, merchandise and stuff for sale, but also just like that's where they're putting like, the Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein and Quake and all these other things that they were just trying to show off there. Or Wolfenstein 2, sorry. Yeah, so definitely a neat looking area. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to spend any time in it, which was too bad. That would have been nice. Dell had an area, and yeah, that's just kind of a quick look at the main floor before like it opened up to the public. And then outside that main area, this is as far as you can get without a pass. So even though, if you may not get into the convention by buying, a pass or whatever, that big area you saw before, that's, what you would get into if you have a badge. Without a badge, you can still get in, and there's still a bunch of things you have access to, and that was one of them. Right here is an area you couldn't get to without a badge, but this is also after it's been opened up to the public, so you can see instantly it gets a lot more insane. And it's kind of a shit show in a good way. Like it's chaos. There's tons of people there, but it's organized. And this is just a quick look of like what the main floor kind of looks like after there's a bunch of people in there. And even here, this was this wasn't that bad. It got a lot worse on Saturday. I believe I shot most of this footage on Friday. And I just kind of, just wanted quick shots of stuff. But I hadn't noticed that big skull. That's actually why I believe I got that footage. But I also wanted to get footage just kind of, comparing what it's like, when you have media access versus public access. That's the difference an hour makes, man. Seriously. Although media access is just kind of interesting to walk and get a sense of the space, maybe get something to eat. And that's about it, because you can't really, you're not usually allowed to play anything unless you have like a buddy who hooks you up with something. But otherwise, you're basically just kind of just checking out the space and kind of figuring out where to make your priorities. And so, that is an advantage, I suppose. But you can see, just again, look how different it gets the second the public is open. So, if you ever decide to go to one of these conventions, just kind of be aware. And if you can get yourself a media badge or whatever, you should try to do that. Like I said earlier, it's kind of E3, but for the public. That's kind of the way I would put it. Which is why you kind of wait for it, I guess. Toe Jam and Earl, of course, has a new game coming out. I'd kind of forgotten that, and they actually had it on display, so it's kind of nice to see that franchise actually really come back. A little more footage of the Nintendo area. Like I said, it's much smaller, and their primary focus was basically just, the one game. And then they had a little bit of, like, I think it was Pokken Tournament DX or whatever. And then there's a close-up look of the Super Nintendo Mini, which I don't care about, but I know a lot of you do. This made me laugh. Disneyland Adventures is getting an Xbox One version, which, that's so funny. Very, very funny to me if you watch my other channel. Which you should watch Game Society, and you'll understand. There's a whole other section. This is on the 6th floor. There's a bunch of indie stuff up there, and I just kind of, by the time I was up there, I was kind of like done shooting footage, so I just thought I'd get you guys like a clip and just kind of see what the space was like. I had forgot to go up there when it was more readily accessible to the media, but nevertheless, here's a couple of shots so you can get a sense of the space. But it wasn't, it was kind of my mistake. I should have filmed earlier, but I had other meetings, man. I had to do those first. So I was hanging out with some of my buddies who work at Limited Run Games, and then I met up with John Riggs and Jason from Metal Jesus Rocks. That's Metal Jesus Rocks right there. I realized not the best shot. We all just kind of hung out for a while, wandered around. We went and got sushi. If you watch John Riggs's video, I think he called it Pax is Rigged, RIGG''D. And then you can see all of us just hanging out. He got a lot more footage of it than I did. I just kind of got a couple of little bit guerrilla shots here. And this is this game called Haunted Halloween 85, which is an indie game that's coming out for the NES. So I know they picked up copies, so look forward to videos from them. Anyway, guys, that's it for this part. I think I'm going to go ahead and show you all my swag. So that was a look at PAX West 2017. Obviously, pretty cool time. And as per usual, I walked away with a bunch of swag or free stuff. I don't really like that word. So in the past, if you've seen my previous PAX videos, or really like any convention videos I do, you'll know that I tend to walk away with a lot of just stuff like that. And this year I was like, you know what? You're 30 now, you don't really need to just be grabbing every single like free thing anybody shoves in your face. So I was like, I'm gonna be a little calmer here. You know, that's what I'm gonna do. The only things I was on the lookout for, I was like, you know what, I don't really feel like bringing sunglasses, but you know, every convention ever you get free sunglasses, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to intentionally not bring enough t-shirts because I'm going to get free shirts, and I don't want to, you know, why bother? Why bring so many shirts? Because in the past I end up coming home with like a whole suitcase full of t-shirts, right? Oh, mistakes were made. Never got those sunglasses, and I had insufficient amount of t-shirts, so I had to like do laundry on the road, whatever. Anyway, so that said, I still walked away with some stuff, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to show you guys. So the first thing I got, of course, if it even counts, is my badge. I had a content creator badge, which is basically a media badge, and it has a little lanyard. Not really swag per se, but still something I got. The first thing, the like real thing I got, if you will, was I went to that breakfast I showed you earlier in the video by Behemoth Games, and they gave me this just when I signed in. It was just a little bag. So I was like, all right, yeah, okay, sure, a little bag. Tip of the iceberg. That's just where the problem started. On Saturday night of the event, I went to a couple of parties. One was hosted by Outpost Games. They make SOS, which is a game we've been playing on my other channel on Game Society. You should check it out. They were very helpful because when I got there, they gave me this, my one and only clothing item. It was basically like a thin hoodie or kind of like a windbreaker. This was very, very useful, so thank you. I needed this. So yes, awesome. Free hoodie, basically, or free windbreaker. But that, unfortunately, it was the one and only clothing item I walked away with, sadly. So everything else was just kind of like random or caught my eye for one reason or another. I was walking around the convention floor. I was about to leave one day, and there was someone who worked for Geico just walking around, and they just put this plushie in my face, like, here you go, free plushie. And I was like, oh, okay. So ended up with a little plushie. I don't really know what to do with it, but there it is. I went over and played a game called Light Tracer. A buddy of mine was like, he was running the PR for it, and he was like, hey, if you get bored, come on up and check it out. We got the PSVR unit set up, you can feel free to play. So I had time on my hands, and I just was like, I took him up on his offer and played it for like a good half hour. It's a pretty fun little platformer, considering it uses VR and stuff, and it was interesting to try. And at the end of it, after playing for about a half hour, they gave me this, just a pin. Just, there you go. Played a game called Light Tracer. Pretty neat. The other pin I got was actually from Super Mario Odyssey. I got to play that right as they were closing up, I think on Saturday as well, which was nice because I was media, so they weren't quite as aggressive in kicking me out, which is not what you'd expect from Nintendo. But nevertheless, I got to play the game like right as it was wrapping up for about 10 minutes, then I got the pin at the end of it, so that was neat. Another day, I think it was the last day, it was either Sunday or Monday, I was wandering around, and much like the Geico thing, there was just someone handing out mouse pads, and they just like shoved one in my face. So here you go, free mouse pad. Survived by, I don't even know what the hell game this is for, but whatever, it is what it is. A couple of paper goods. Microsoft had a bunch of people wandering around just making it rain these little cards. These cards are basically Xbox Game Pass advertisements, which is, I guess I'm going to do their job for them right here. It's basically a little thing. They have a new service they have coming out that's kind of like the Netflix of gaming, where you just, if you're a subscriber, you can just stream or rent digital copies of games. I don't remember if they actually download, if they're actually streaming, but that's a technical point that doesn't really matter. For the purposes of this, they were handing out these little cards with ads. The only reason these were even worth retaining is because on the back it contains a code for a 1-month free trial. Realistically, I will never use this, but I will probably give it to somebody at some point. The other thing that was very similar was part of a prize pack that I won that I'll talk more about in a bit. Same type of deal. This is for Boomerang, which is a, I believe, a Warner Brothers Cartoon Network service that just has a whole bunch of their shows on like a digital streaming service, and if you are a subscriber, then you can watch them whenever. This card gives me 1 year for free. Which is cool. I don't know if I'll use it, but it's there. One of the cooler paper type of items, though, in my opinion, like the best one, was I also played Sonic Mania. I'm sorry, I played Sonic Forces, the new Sonic game that's coming out. And once you played it, for like, you know, the one level they had playable, at the end they would give you this. This is an instruction manual for Sonic Mania. Now, Sonic Mania is fascinating because Sega put out like this awesome collector's edition of that game with a really cool figure and statue and like all these little awesome things, but it was missing two things. One was an actual copy of the game. It was purely digital, which was dumb as shit. And And the other thing it didn't have was an instruction manual. Well, they made instruction manuals, it's just they were exclusive to the Pax West for whatever fucking reason. So I ended up with one of those, even though I don't have the collector's edition or the game in any capacity. I do have the uber rare manual, so whoopee. On top of that, I did actually pick up some games. Limited Run Games was there, and they were selling this variant of Ys Origin for the PS4 with an exclusive cover. So I picked that up because I thought that was neat. And on top of that, they just threw in this little keychain, which was nice. And then there was another company there called Merge Games. They're based, I believe, well, I know they're in Europe, I think the UK specifically. And they kind of do the same thing that Limited Run Games does, where they make like physical editions of otherwise digital games, and then they also go all out by adding extra content, you know, all sorts of physical perks, right? Collector's editions, what they call a signature edition. I was aware of them, I had seen their stuff in the past, I just never pulled the trigger on it because it was kind of expensive, especially not only, you know, it being from Europe, but then on top of that having to ship it from Europe. I just kind of never pulled the trigger, right? But anyway, they were there, and they were selling the games for cheaper than usual. And then they started doing deals where they said, like, you could buy one for 30 or two for 50. And I was like, well, what if I want to get all four? Like, literally the guy had, like, not been asked that question because he didn't really know what to say. He was just like, 80? So basically it was 10 off of each game, or buy 3 get 1 free, depending on however you want to look at it. So I picked up their whole set. The first one up was Slain, Back from Hell. Then Unbox, Newbie's Adventure. Yonder, the Cloudcatcher Chronicles. And then finally, Origami. So definitely cool. It also came with, each game came with like a bunch of little pins and coins and stuff, which was nice. So that's all cool, just to pick up some PS4 games, because honestly I wasn't expecting to. And then on top of that, I mentioned earlier that I had won a little prize pack. This was extremely unexpected. I went to, right after I went to the SOS party, I went over to the Machinima party. Machinima is the guys who got me my badge and stuff, so like I've worked with Machinima many times. My other channel is with them. And so that's how I got into the party. And I was just hanging out, whatever. And Machinima parties typically have a raffle at some point. I've never participated in them. I've never really cared about them. But in this case, at one point I'm just sitting down, like, you know, nursing a water because I don't drink. And my manager comes up to me. Yes, I have a manager. And she comes up to me and she's like, hey, can I grab you for a second? I was like, sure. And then I go with her and she's like, hey, you won the raffle. And I was like, I didn't even enter. She's like, oh, you entered just by being here. Like, on the guest list, you're entered. So we just randomly pulled a name. You won. I was like, oh, all right. So she hands me a bag full of stuff. Now, one of the things was that card. The other thing's right here. A little sticker from Bloody Gaming, which I believe they must have been the sponsor of the raffle in particular, because they also came out with this. This is one of these like foam hand things. Neat. And then like the real prizes. We have, this is a Go Play Sidekick, portable wireless game controller for iOS. Unfortunately not particularly useful to me because it's for Apple TV, iPhone, iPad, iPod, things I don't own. The only Apple product I own is an Apple Pippin. I don't think this is compatible. Although, what if it was? How fucking cool would that be? So that's neat nonetheless. Bloody also made this. This is a gaming mouse. So it's always good to have an extra mouse, you know, you could always use that. And then, in my opinion, the best thing was this. This is a keyboard, a gaming keyboard, Suara FX Raw Power Unchained. It's a mechanical RGB light keyboard. So that, I think, is really cool, because my keyboard could probably use an upgrade, so nice to have that. So thank you to Machinima. And finally, so this isn't actually PAX related specifically, but you know, I went to PAX with the intention of, okay, I'll go to Seattle and then I'll come home after the convention. And then at one point I got an invite to a thing in San Francisco, and scheduling gods were in my favor because I was supposed to leave Seattle on the 5th, and then I was suddenly told I have to be in San Francisco on the 5th. So I was like, I'm just going to cut out the middleman, I'm not even going to go home, I'll just fly from Seattle down to San Francisco. So that's exactly what I did. And so I went to an event, a Ubisoft event for South Park, The Fractured But Whole, and after I played the game, I got this. I got a poster for the game. Check that shit out. Awesome as that. Yeah, that's pretty neat. So Yeah, that was fun. And that's it. That's it from all the stuff from my little excursion here for about a week. But yeah, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out that I got to meet over there. That was a lot of fun. Of course, thank you to my friends, other YouTubers who I get to hang out with and see there, as well as YouTubers I hadn't met prior. It's nice to finally meet you. And of course, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later.